This conference will now be recorded.
I apologize for being late this morning, but the first thing of order on that is the budget review. So let's go ahead and get that started.
Yes, sir. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to let everybody know, as Councilwoman Keaton reminded me, being that this is a strange room, if you look over to the right here, facing this way, you'll see we have bathrooms. And also for our visitors, please don't walk up where these tables are. Main reason being there's a bunch of wires and we do not want anyone to fall down and get hurt. And also we want to be able to get the message out to our citizens that are watching this. So in saying that, we're going to jump in. The first part of this is a budget review. Um, the main reason for this is there have been some questions on what we have were, and you know, is everything what was voted on by the council actually in the budget? And so I figured what I would do is I would just hit the highlights, walk through the budget, and then when I finish that, any questions that you all might have, Diana and I will do our best to answer them. So on the first page it has a number one, and this came from a couple of reports, so it won't be numbered 100% correctly. I just will go through it slow. I just wanted to ensure that you had all the information that you needed to completely understand the budget. I think the important thing on the first page, this is a summary of all funds. And if you look at the top four items, general governmental funds, you will see the general fund, the hospitality fund, the accommodations tax fund, and the local accommodations fund. And then if you look at the very bottom of this form, you will see that the total expenditures are $24,085,535. I say that because these numbers are supposed to balance. It's supposed to be a balanced fund. If we're spending something, we have to show we've got it. If you go to the second page, you'll see the adopted consolidated budget. And if you look at the total of revenues and other financing sources, you'll see the total is $19,604,485. And I show that because if you come down to the expenditures, you'll see that's what we're spending. In addition to that, we have government transfers, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And again, the total budget, total appropriations is $24,085,535. And on the next page, you see a general fund budget summary. And so total revenues are $8,971,350. And up above it is just a breakdown of where all that money comes from. And then at the bottom of that, you'll see total expenditures, which is $8,971,350. And again, if you look at the individual spaces, you'll see what we spent it on. The next page is changes in fund balance summary. And some of the highlights here, if you want to jump into anytime, some of the highlights here is the you show the beginning fund balances as $4,741,055, and when the ending fund balance is actually $4,741,055. And then the next section of this is your fund balances, where they are, what we're doing with them. And if you go down to the middle, you'll see some of these are restricted for victims advocate, uh, designated for disasters, which is $1.2 million, assigned to capital replacements and land and meters. This thing shows a unassigned 2.6 $2,689,000, but I think it's gone up since then, correct? Uh, Yeah, 3 point, now it's gone up to 3.3. What do you, I'm sorry, I gave them all out.
The audit is 3.3.
Yeah, so we've actually got more unassigned than we thought we did. And so your total fund balance would be $4,741,000. Then if you go to the next sheet, it's got a number 5 on the bottom of it. I put this in this package. I think it's this one. And again, this is giving you an update of what you approved. And I think this is real important because what it does, it actually gives you total revenue and it breaks it down by general fund, hospitality, A-tax. So all these other sheets that I'm showing you actually come from this, correct? Or go to that. And it actually, it shows you how it all fits together. So those numbers should be here and they do match. But again, it shows you, it gives you general fund, it gives you hospitality, it gives you A-tax, it gives you local A-tax, it gives you stormwater, it gives you capital projects, and the total, and then it takes out some stuff for transfers. And then, of course, on the other side are our enterprise funds, which are sanitation, pier, and so this breaks all those individual departments and everything. It just puts it all into one place to help you understand what we got total. And then the next page, again, trying to give you an overview of the budget. It's page 20. It's called it's your capital replacement schedule. And if you look at the top, the capital replacement reserves balances, the ending balance is $638,977. And you'll see where they have purchases, it's $409, 409,000, which is above that. If you go down about an inch, you'll see purchases, it's 409,000, and it actually identifies everything that $409,000 are in.
This is just projected.
Yeah, and of course, it is projected, as we know, because a lot of local government budgets are what we think are going to happen until the actual money comes in. Sometimes you get surprised. We've been blessed the last couple of years. We've had more money than we thought we would get. But if you go to the next page, which is 24, that's your accommodations tax fund budget summary. And if you look at it, the 22-23 fiscal year, we're expecting state accommodations tax revenue to be $795,000, but total revenue in here will be $809,950. And then if you go underneath it to the bottom, you see total expenditures, which is the same. The next one would be your hospitality fund and budget summary again. Our total revenue in there is $2,341,000. And then if you look at the expenditures, if you look at, it breaks it down for fire, ground, streets, events, and transfers and such, and you will see that the total expenditures at the bottom is $2,341,000. And so again, it's a balanced budget, and we're trying to show you where it's going when it comes, where it's coming from and where it's going. And then if you look at the next one, it's your local accommodations tax fund. Revenue is $230,000, but then if you look at the total revenue, because you got settlements and fees, interest and things like that, you'll see it's $577,450. And then, if you look at the expenditures, you'll see, it identifies, transfers to repair, transfers to general fund, and that adds up to $577,450. And then the next page, which is 34, just kind of breaks it down a bit more. And it talks about your total revenue of 476. And then it shows you where some of those transfers are going. And it also shows you that were transfers to public safety and the fire. And then, of course, one of those is the end of the SAFER grant, which would be 2526. We're identifying those numbers, so we're ready for it. The next page, capital project funds. And if you look at the revenue, and this revenue actually identifies the current American Rescue, which is $1,126,400. So a total revenue for capital projects funds is $2,680,000. And then if you go to the expenditures, you'll see road paving projects, road paving engineering, you'll see government services, and it's a total expenditures of $2,680,000. So again, balanced budget. And then if you hit page 37, and again, we can give you the individual sheets, but you got that in your whole budget. This is just the summary stuff I'm trying to get out to you all. If you go to the next page, capital projects funds, you'll see total revenues is $1,578,400, and that identifies American Rescue 2022. And then if you go down to expenditures, you'll see some of the expenditures that we have in here. Number one, street improvements, engineering, that's together $480,000. Then you have building from general, which is $600,000. Demolition from general is $100,000, and police building from hospitality is $1.5 million. Okay, and that's $2.2 million. Where am I at? I'm sorry. So the beginning fund balance for the capital projects fund was $2,442,000, and the ending fund balance is $1,341,000 because we spent, or we have a little more going out than coming in. And then if you go to the next page, which is page 38, and again, we'll just do the budget first before we talk about the bond. Available balance is $1,380,000. If you look at the projected available balance, it's $1,402,000.
One at the bottom is this.
Okay, yeah. And then, if you look at the next one, I'm sorry, it's 22-23, our projected available fund balance for this current budget, that was last year's, is $1,402,645. And then we break it down where we got some of those numbers. In there, you have American Rescue, you have government service, and you have police. And so our projected available balance still is at the $1,341,000. So we have, that's the budget that we gave you. And I think now, if you have any questions on anything in the budget, we will do our best to answer them.
$1 million we got staying in here.
No, we haven't received that yet. Till we actually get it, we can't.
When we haven't received,
We didn't-
American Rescue number 2 yet.
But we didn't know anything about the state budget number when we did pass the budget.
Okay.
We knew about American Rescue.
About the Ryan 2 refund.
We're still waiting for that. I actually went to the Concord and met with the county, and they have a couple of court cases that they're dealing with and a couple of finishing up things. And they're hoping that they can project the number. If there's a number, they make it very clear, if there's a number, because depending on how the court case works, they were talking end of December, beginning of January before we would actually get a number.
It's not in here at all.
Yeah, you can't, I mean, because, they, yeah.
Shows up.
The good thing about them, though, is they actually have money set aside for these type of emergencies. So even if it's bigger than expected, hopefully it won't be so big that it drains it.
My question is, we applied and we got a $4 million bond, right?
Yes, sir.
Has that money been given to the $4 million in its entirety, been given to the town, or do we do draws on it, or how does that work?
No, we received it all. It's all in the pier fund.
We were, correct me if I'm wrong, we were basically using that as our cash, so when we needed to get something done, we would use that money to pay for it, so it wasn't coming from our money, and then they would reimburse us, and then we'd use it again, and that was, if I remember correctly, that's how the plan was originally set up.
So we've been using that bond money to make our payments on the pier.
Yes, sir.
Well, right now yes, we are and we aren't.
Yeah, we're to the end of
We're
the
still
calendar.
using the money from FEMA. They're sending us money, so we're using, I guess you would use that first. There's no way to know which money you're using.
Yeah, there's a trend, but it goes through, that's how we had the cash.
But we have no peer accounting in the peer fund presentation for the budget. Because, we're showing operating revenue, we're showing operating expenses, we're not showing anything, other than a line item down at the bottom as far as is potential capital expense. But the peer fund itself in the budget does not show the 4 million. It does not show all of the FEMA reimbursements. It does not show all of the expenses we incurred to earn those FEMA reimbursements. Like right now, we're showing FEMA reimbursement in 23 of 300,000, but we don't really show
Because
what
that was
we
in last year.
expended to earn that reimbursement.
Because it's all part of the pier and it's capitalized. All that's left to come into us at this point in time was going to be the $300,000 that's owed us. So that's why that's in here. If you look at the next page, it's in, I don't know if he gave you the next page. It should have showed you that this year we brought in $6 million from FEMA.
No, I didn't put that in there.
Well, for 2022, we brought in $6 million from FEMA, and that 300 would be the difference. What we brought in $2 million the year before, so it's the whole $9 million.
Yeah, but it's not just revenue. We only got that because we spent that money.
But it all gets capitalized into the building, which is
But
part of
it's
the
not
third.
in the capital projects either.
It's not. If the pier fund is by itself, capital projects is general fund. This is the pier. The pier spent $13 million in capital this year and $6 million in the year we're in right now.
And that's in the budget that we gave you, it's just, I didn't,
I understand
Okay.
what I got. I brought it with me.
got it.
I have 5 different spreadsheets at home that analyze it. I know.
Yes, ma'am.
But you still don't have a start to finish peer project accounting as to know exactly what is it costing us, how much is the town having to put forward versus the FEMA reimbursements. We show an astronomical balance in the peer fund of $17.4 million, but we all know we've already spent 3/4 of that. So that 17 million clearly must include $4 million bond and the 10 million-ish FEMA grant, but it doesn't show where are we getting the money that has paid for the pier. You know, we get in the monthly updates, we get peer accounting that last time it told us we have spent cost to date $12,983,160,000. But when I go over here to these budgets, I see none of that. Where did that $12 million come from?
The 12
Because when
million,
I go to the peer fund, it's not there. When I go to the capital asset fund, it's not there. So where is it?
financial accounting wise, it wouldn't show in the budget. It would show in a cash flow, which is in the monthly reporting. And that number I think you're showing is what we owe consensus, is not the total. You'd have to go down farther on the page.
I'm going
And I don't know
total
if I brought
cost
it.
to date.
Doesn't that say consensus?
Construction is $10,747,476. Total cost to date is $12,983,160. So yeah, you show, here's who we paid,
That's correct.
but it doesn't show. You have assets, you've got revenue coming in, you've got the bond, you've got FEMA reimbursements, you've got transactions of incoming money. You've got transactions of outgoing money. You've got the gazintas and the gazatas.
But they aren't
Those-
expenses, so it
those
doesn't go through the
Those
P&L.
have to match.
They don't go through the P&L. It would have to be a cash flow statement, which we don't do every month.
Well,
It's
but
basically on that thing.
But on a project for $17 million, I think the residents would like to see that cash flow statement of where the funds are coming from and when is it that taxpayer money is going to come forward. Now, granted, we're showing enough money through hospitality tax, accommodation tax, the grace of Governor McMaster's, FEMA, and several other sources such that our actual property taxes are not going to have to be used for the pier. But
That's true.
I think that's the biggest concern about the pier project. It's a huge project for this town. And if you ask Joe Schmo on the street, or, any of our residents that came here today, how are we paying for the pier? I'm gonna bet none of them can answer the question. Yeah, we talk about it, but we never show it. How is the money flowing? The money is flowing from somewhere. And yet we put out, but look, we've got 17 million in the pier fund. Well, I'm guessing we probably don't.
No, that's the bill. That is the pier itself.
Total cost.
That is the
Yeah,
pier.
well, but.
That is the asset, the pier and its land and everything else, is what that is.
You put a paper out here that says net position, ending net position in the fiscal year budget 22, $17,470,000.
It's an accounting term.
Again, I think we owe it to the residents to show them how we are paying for this project. We need to be able to show this is the source of our income. Whether it's a hospitality allocation, it's a state grant, it's a bond that, is debt to the town. I'd be able to show how much of that bond are we gonna have to repay at the end of the day? And what are these other sources of income that make up how we're paying this $12 million so far and this outstanding additional maybe additional 2 million, I think we're anticipating. Where is it coming from? And until we can show
I
not
believe
only
it's on there.
council, but also our residents, this is the cash flow of this project. This is where it's coming from. This is what we're paying for. And this is how, at the end of the day, we are debt free. I think we owe that to the residents. And we are not getting that in any of the budget stuff. And it was my point during the budget discussions that we show money coming in, we talk about allocating it to the pier, but then we get documentation that doesn't show any of that.
You say what you think.
No, that's fine with it. I think it's on the monthly report, but she just says it's not there, so I can't do something can't defend. I don't have a copy of it.
I have the monthly report right here. It does not show me what is the balance of the money that we're allocating to?
It doesn't show you I admit it does not show you the balance. It shows you at what we anticipate and what we've got. We're going to get in 18,936,000. Reimbursements from FEMA for 9. The transfers from the other funds of $4 million were taken from other funds.
I understand that.
Bond proceeds of another 4, and the PRT grants of 500,000. So that's $18 million we're bringing in.
Now I have the question that we have allocated, or we thought we allocated certain American Rescue funds for this particular purpose. We've allocated certain hospitality tax funds for this purpose, et cetera. And then we find out, well, maybe that's not the case.
We never did American Rescue. That was never part of any discussion that I was part of, ever. So if that was supposed to be communicated down, I guarantee you it was not. I was never, ever told that.
Well, I was never told that either. I was told that American Rescue money went in a separate fund. We helped projects we were getting, never went into a peer fund.
And
That's the way I understood it.
that's the way I understood it also.
I mean, that's the way it's been presented to me.
I was never, ever told me to be put into their fund.
The only money that I know that's ever went into the peer fund is the
I didn't
whatever
see.
$1 million we got from the federal government, $4 million from Maury, $4 million we got from hospitality.
I didn't say it went into the peer fund. I said we talked about Alec not using it for any other purpose until we had the peer paid for it. Saying that, yes, we put it in the capital fund because it
Yes.
shouldn't reside in the general fund to be nickel dime away. So yeah, we put it into the capital fund. But the discussion we had was using it to pay the balance of what we owe on the pier.
That I never heard. Never heard that at all. Never heard anything about the bond.
Unless
And then-
you thought we allocated it to the pier.
It was my understanding that we had.
But you
taken-
asked me, and I told you we couldn't pay it till 28, and you were shocked because you didn't know that.
Right.
But that is the way it worked. That's why it was never allocated that way.
Right, but the thing about it is that the American Rescue, it was my understanding, and we've talked about this on numerous occasions, that we were gonna take $90,000 out of it.
For the salaries, yes.
Yeah.
For our salary bonuses that
Bonuses.
we did, and we weren't gonna spend any of the rest of it. And we were waiting for another 1.026 million
Yes.
to come in this year. And then the same thing, we're waiting for $1 million to come from the state this year. We have money that's coming in, and it was my understanding that we were gonna put that off to the side to be our backup for the pier.
We put it off to the side.
And it has been put off to the side. And the thing about it is, in the middle of while we were doing all this too, we were also finding out what we could or could not use for it. That money is sitting there. We do not, if we want to put it to the side, we can't pay it till 2028. I mean, but there are ways we can use it to pay some of the bills
Yeah, we could be
Yes.
using it to pay the bills.
and then
instead
move some of
the-
that other money over.
Instead of the
because-
bond
yeah.
principal, so in 2028, the bond principal is there.
Yes,
Untouched.
and I was gonna talk about that next, yes, ma'am. But, we can do that, but we can move money around while we're doing it. It's hard, but we can do it. We just gotta make sure we do the right money and we don't move something we can't move. But yeah, so that money can be float. It can be a floater. We can use it like we use the bond money. We had, a $2 million bill. You use the bond money to pay that, then we got it back. I mean, that made the most sense to us because we weren't using town funds. It's a small thing to do, in my
I'm
opinion.
not right on what was presented to us, was the $18 million back here. That money's been done, money's been allotted.
Yes,
And it ain't supposed to cost, it is not supposed to cost no more than that to pay for that pier.
yes, it went, when we did, and this was before my time, so if I'm off, please jump in. When we did the pier and we decided to set it up, with the bond, we budgeted that pier to be paid for without the amount of A tax or A tax coming in. We didn't know we were gonna get that much. We budgeted the pier to be paid for without the $1.5 million we got from the state. we budgeted the pier to be paid for without the 2 point something million we got from American Rescue. So yes, that did happen.
That's
And-
my
and-
understanding of the money that we have today.
Yeah.
$1 million. Here should not cost no more than that. If that's the case, then at the end, you're gonna have a big balance, or a big over money.
That's the hope, yes, sir.
That's the hope. We don't have that. So we should be able to use $2 million that we get from funds to do whatever else we want to. That wasn't allocated for the people.
Yeah, and in reference to the bond itself, that was, when that bond was sent out and presented to y'all, we ended up with a $4 million bond, and total payments of this $4 million bond, will, when we reached, 10/1/2028, we can pay it off. But in April 2021, total payments for that bond was $20,346. In 22, it was $87,200. 22, 23, it's $331,000. This is a year. In 24, we're talking $331,068. 25, we're talking 331,000. 26, we're talking 331,000. 27, we're talking 331,000. And then 28, we're talking 331. And then if we decide to, and it's your decision, we can pay it off for $2.1 million because we've been paying on it since.
Well, my question is, why are we using borrowed money to pay for the pier right now when we have money in there that we got from other sources, like the 500,000 we got from the state?
We aren't really using them, and there's over $5 million in the pier fund, so, but you can't tell which money you're using.
But you can still know where you spend it. It's the other money for you. You don't spend that money. It goes toward the pier.
Wait a minute,
So
which
you
money are
wanna-
you talking about? American Rescue is over by itself, has nothing to do with the pier. The pier has its own money of $5 million.
But American Rescue can be used for the pier, is that correct?
I
That's
believe
what we-
so,
that's
based
what
on
we
the
talked
rules.
about.
Based on the rules I've seen, yes, sir.
When I was trying to town in debt, I never had to set an account when we pay it off down the way. So now I'm town in debt, spending more money somewhere else. You don't have, if you spend money over here, might as well.
But it's sitting over by itself. It's not hurting anything where it is. It's earning interest in the local government fund. You can use it in if you don't want to spend it, just use it later to pay down if that's what you want.
Your
It
record
was
shows
never
it's
said it was for the
allocated
pier.
a
It's
purpose.
just set aside. It was never set aside for the pier. There's never been that I was told, is all I'm saying.
I think one of the issues people need to know is none of this pier money was over tax money.
Correct.
True.
People that pay taxes in town, none of that minute money has gone towards the pier.
Correct.
But the money to pay it back
Pay it back.
is coming from the residents.
No, it's not coming out of general. It's absolutely
Or
not.
it's coming from the
It is
hospitality.
A-tax, hospitality tax, state money.
It's going into the pier and it's coming out of the pier fund.
Then you got money that's going to be paid on these bills off the pier that generates that money, you have to pay that money back. It's not going to cost the, right now, unless it goes over the 18 million, it's not going to cost the taxpayers that live in town or citizens of our county. It's not costing them anything. That's what you do.
Except
But
when they
again,
go out to
like I
use.
said, we don't have
That's what we said.
that kind of project accounting visibility to understand that, when we get the next bill from Consensus or Collins or whomever, and we need to pay them another $300,000 or whatever it is, we should have an account sitting over here with $4 million bond money in it and just say, okay, well, we're paying this, but we're going to take that out of the American Rescue Funds. We're going to take that out of the pier fund that already has the accommodation tax and the hospitality tax allocations. So we can show that come 2028 and the bond is called, we can say, yes, here's the money.
So you basically want us a zero-based budget, you want us just line item everything. I'm just
But
making sure I
No,
understand.
I think the residents want to see a project accounting for this $17 million pier project. Because there's so much angst out there
That's
about
what
what
this is, and
Consensus
it's not
is
good
doing,
enough.
what LSVP is doing, what Collins is doing, what the town's doing.
It's not fair, everything that they're doing every month. It's just not good enough for what you just want.
Yeah.
It shows you every month what we're
If you
spending.
want an example of what I'm talking about, I will go home and I will spend my time and give you a project accounting template of what it's supposed to look like when you undertake $17 million worth of a project. I will do that. And I think I've given it to you before. But I'll check my computer.
Well, I'll check mine too, because if you did, I have it.
I don't have it, so I'm
But, I mean, this is following governmental budgeting processes, and I don't mind doing what you want.
Well, I think we
We'll-
just want to ensure that the money is coming from the right places and that we're not inadvertently spending money on something else before we know that pier is paid for.
It was,
I have no
as
problem. We
Mr.
can-
Stamey said, it was our impression that this American Rescue Fund was gonna go into a separate account and be held to,
Yeah.
for
It is.
later distribution.
It actually
Right.
is,
And
that's
that's what
exactly what
we're
it is.
It wasn't until we had the architect presentation, and we got a list of things for you, that it showed that 1.5 million was going to Kenny for his building, which I don't have any problem with. But it said on there that it was hospitality tax.
No, it was originally in hospitality
But then we
tax.
found out it's not hospitality tax, it's American Rescue money, which none of us knew was coming out of the fund that was sitting there to be there as a backup.
No,
So
we
that's-
discussed
that's
it in
what
one of the
caused
budget meetings.
angst.
We discussed it on May the 5th about the American Rescue Plan. It's in the minutes.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is just because
But we
it's,
said we would hold it, we would transfer
Well,
it
that's
out of
fine.
the general fund and hold it over into the capital
Yeah.
fund, so it wouldn't get nickel-dimed on day-to-day
Yeah.
expenses.
and we're not gonna.
So we haven't done that.
And we're not gonna spend it on anything unless you guys tell us.
So is the problem the $100,000 for the demolition and the architects? Is that what the problem is? We don't have to spend that if that's what you want. You gotta take that building down. That is my
Yeah.
absolute, you've gotta take
Okay,
that
we can
building down.
switch gears.
But that's what's in this American Rescue Plan. Which is what I'm asking if that's the problem.
Well, we show about $170,000 left from the 2021-2022 budget for the relocation of pier, or relocation of town hall project. That included building new council chambers and, you know, the evaluation that we were gonna hold off on what to do with the new site until we got everything relocated across the street. That's what we agreed to in June through October of '21. That's what council voted for. So what I'm seeing here is of the 1.896 million that we did the budget amendment for, that was to include that entire project of relocating across the street, including building the new council chambers, multi-purpose room. That was all included in the 1.896 million. Of that, if what we see here is true, that we spent $1,342,000, that leaves about $553,000, $554,000.
It's about 497 is all that's left.
And then we
Because you had to
had
buy the
also
land.
do some modifications for the generator that we put in there. That came out. of
And you
that
needed
fund.
that land.
It's 497 left.
But we have that funds
And that's-
available, already approved to say we will build the council chambers. where it was.
It's not budgeted, that's
Yeah.
the only thing.
These-
Sitting in the unallocated.
But in saying that, there was a lot of confusion on that, and that's why we had the engineers come down, because whether I'm building one building, that's a council chamber, whether I'm building a master.
So we're going to the next
No,
agenda item.
I'm answering your question.
Let's get off one subject. Are we on the pier or are we on the building?
That's what I said.
I thought we were on the budget.
We was on the pier, now we're on building the buildings. Where do you want to be at?
Well,
Let's take.
Yeah,
take
in
one
ref-
thing
in
and
reference-
solve before we jump into something else.
Yeah.
We're not solving.
yeah, in reference to the pier, this is, I mean, we're following government accounting, the auditors looked at this, and
She wants details.
but we can, yes,
I thought we had the money set. We'd already allocated money of $18 billion for the pier. That's money, no other rescue money, no other things was put into that. We had $18 million set aside for the pier, or we had. We spent out of that $18 million, $12 million, is that in the neighborhood of the right price? 12 million, so we have 6 million left to spend on the pier. As of right now.
is that it?
We've spent, we've spent, it's consensus and what all this is, we've spent.
Spent to the,
Spent to date, that's just consensus. We spent, that's what it's gonna cost, and then we spent it. We spent, we spent 12,000,009. And then consensus needs another $4 million for their part of it. And then we'll need whatever we have to pay for Collins and whatever else.
So
And
as
the-
of right now, of this day, we've spent out of the $18 million, $12 million.
It's like 13, it's
First.
12,9.
it's probably gone up a little bit, we've had a couple of payments
$13
since
million.
that. Yes, sir.
So we have $5 million left in the budget, approximately,
Correct. We have
Yes.
$5 million left, plus we're gonna get another million from the state.
but that ain't in there yet, right? So we're gonna bring that, bring it up to $19 million. We take that million and put it in there. But right now, we got $18 million. We spent $13 million. We got $5 million left today, as we, right?
And how much is our current obligation for the rest of the money for the pier as per contract?
Consensus, it's 4 million of it is consensus.
So the 4 million, we may be looking at some change orders, or we may be looking at something that's gonna increase the.
Right, so you're gonna touch the
Yes.
bond before you're done. You're probably gonna end up, my best guess is you're gonna end up with probably around $1 million left. Maybe $1.5 million, maybe closer
But
to 2.
we've got American Rescue Funds from last year and coming in this year,
And state,
and we've got another million from the state coming.
yes,
That
ma'am.
included the million from the state.
Maybe it's not, if the $4 million that we've got already, are we gonna have to pay on that for the time comes, we have not used none of the $4 million, so we're gonna have to, is that just get back in and forget about that?
We've already got,
Yeah.
they've already given it to us, so we're
That's
paying,
what I'm saying.
we're paying
It
interest
don't
on
matter
it right
what
now, whether we
happens,
use it or
we
not.
use the $4 million now or $4 million later, we still gonna have to make them payments.
We're
Yes,
paying
sir.
that starting October the 1st.
Yeah, but you're making payments on it, but you keep saying American Rescue get it for 2 years, right? Well, you lose it.
The
But you gotta
des-
have toward the bill.
you have to
The way it actually reads is that you gotta have a project
designate.
designated in 2 years, completed in 4 years or 6 years.
26.
26. So if the pier, if it comes down to it, that we need another $1 million out of that, well, we could use that. But right now, that money is set aside for nothing, right at this point, for nothing. It's just sitting there. We've done, put out the money as a council, as a town, we done got $18 million. We're gonna have to pay on that $4 million, it don't matter if it sits there, if we use it, if we don't use it, we still gonna have to make them payments. Till 26, 28, when June, 28, then we can pay it off. But until then, we're gonna make payments on that $4 million.
Is the money from the state and the instruments attached? Do they have to go towards the pier, or do they have to go
So
said
we
for the pier.
requested it for the pier, so yes. So whatever we put, when we get that, we put it into the pier, that's money we don't have to spend out of that 18 million.
Two, we say 2 or 5 million and left to pay up here,
4 million to
4
consensus.
million.
Yes,
So we should use,
at least a
in
million.
my opinion, whatever money that can be used for the pier, other than any of our pay tax or even the hospitality tax, if we can. And then we can save the hospitality tax for things such as police or fire. That's just,
Well, but what that does is then at the December of, or, October 28th, when we call the bond, then we still have another $1.5 million or 2 million in the bank still gaining interest because we haven't touched it. We've touched all these other things that we've already collected and we allocated to the pier. Because then, we then have basically a free $2 million
Which
put
will pay
into
it off.
capital projects, capital, whatever we need.
We've taken the
If
money
we
that
stop
we've got,
touching it.
we've thrown it into the pool instead of isolating it for a rainy day and trying to be fiscally conservative to make sure that the money's there when we need it at a later date.
I didn't hear the first part of what you said.
Beg your pardon?
I didn't hear the first part of what you said.
I said, we've taken the money that we've got, we've taken the $4 million that we've got for the bond and all the other, and we've thrown it into stuff.
We put it all into the pier fund.
Well,
Can only
in
be
the
spent by the
fund of
pier.
American Rescue, we put it into the capital projects fund, and we've taken the money and put it someplace. We have not stowed any of the money away to be fiscally conservative to guarantee our future when the quote stuff happens.
So what do you mean we haven't stowed it? I don't understand what you're saying. It's in the pier fund. It can't come out except to be spent on the pier. The money for American Rescue is sitting in American Rescue until somebody says use it. I don't understand what you're saying. It is
Yeah,
definitely
when we put it in
stowed
the
away,
bank,
in
we
my
still
I
have
opinion.
see
funds.
that you've assigned the money, the American Rescue money, when you put it in the capital funds, you assigned it to an individual project.
That was a budgeted, but it doesn't mean it has to happen. I mean, you can change that. If you don't want to use it for that, then it just sits there.
Well,
It's
I
only a
thought-
budget.
And we're not
It's
gonna-
only,
I thought the
it's nothing.
council had an agreement on what we were gonna do with the American Rescue money and everything before that happened.
Not that I know of.
We were surprised when we went into that meeting and found out that it had been allocated for something we didn't approve.
That is not what I was ever told. That I've told you right up from the beginning. I've never heard that. My understanding was it would go to capital projects. It would sit there. Maybe we would use it for things that we would never have the money for otherwise.
The thing about it is sitting there, nobody touches it.
But it's
until
not
approved.
touched.
Well, but I think what maybe you're not hearing is most of us up here are recommending that we do start touching it and use it first
I'm good with that.
to pay these pier expenses and not touch the bond principal. Because, yeah, I understand we have to pay for it, but it's also sitting in an account somewhere gaining interest. You leave that account at $4 million, it's gonna get a lot more interest than if it's whittled down to, 2.5.
Yes, ma'am.
So if we use the American Rescue funds for this capital project, then we're continuing to gain the revenue on the bond, and we're not using it unless there is some last ditch effort, unforeseen, some reason we have to dip into it. That should be our last choice, not our first choice.
My question would be to you, if you're going to do anything with the town in the future, the money for American Rescue is a lot less restrictive than any other money you have. You have no money in
But
general.
my bond money that I don't have to pay back is unrestricted of any kind.
But it's in the pier fund.
But once the pier is done and up and running and all the expenses are paid, that can be transferred to the general fund or anywhere else we happen to need it.
we'll spend what we have. Our wishes and our hopes are over here.
So the way it is
Is there
right
anything-
now is not hurting anything. The way it is, it's exactly the
But
same
it's-
thing.
I understand that, but is there anything legal that says we can't do what?
Well, I
Council.
think
Why would you want to move $7 million or $9 million into the pier fund? I don't understand why you would want to do that.
I don't think anybody's saying that.
Where do you get 9 million?
Well, if you're going to put American Rescue's another 3, you've already got 7.
I think we're.
You're just
we're
cutting
making
hairs
a
here.
lot Over,
Yeah.
you know, let's face it, we're not gonna pay off the $4 million.
To 2028.
128.
Yes, sir.
So no matter what we do, using it or whatever, we got that covered. And you sit there, we don't have to make a decision about any of these money for a year or 2 years or anything. We're not gonna go out and make a decision tomorrow. We don't.
You need a plan.
I agree. I think we need a plan. I want to make sure I understand what the majority of the council want. I want to do it.
I mean, we do need to define what we're using last year's American Rescue money for by the end of this year.
No,
Every number.
26.
26. 26.
So,
Twenty-four.
We have to have a plan for it.
The first.
but the,
24.
yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm getting what y'all are saying. If you use the American Rescue, but you don't touch the bond, well, then if we decide to use, when we get it paid for, that money that's in the bond, if it needed to go to a building, if it needed to go to a truck, we would do that. So it's not like we're stopping any master plan. It's not like we're stopping any building plan. We're just making sure the piers pay for first.
Correct. Correct.
Does that make
That's
sense?
That's our biggest concern. is to
Yeah.
make sure that-
I mean, I'm just repeating what I'm hearing.
But you're going to, it's in the enterprise fund.
I think we're gonna cut base
You
on
got $1
the
million
deal, we're gonna have the
for
money.
the bond and it's sitting here, or you got rescue sitting, it's still the same $1 million.
Yeah.
And
But you have accounting problems with it's in an enterprise fund. If you put the money in an enterprise fund, you can't put it back in general fund just because you want to. An enterprise fund is different.
That bond money's so cheap, why would you pay it back in 2028? Other than we're historically don't like being debt. But that is almost like free money at 2.18%. That is cheap money.
I don't see, we gotta jump in and just because we owe a debt on the pier, that we need to jump in there and pay it off, and be debt free. That's why we have a revenue coming in to help pay for them when you charge the price of these places on the pier to pay that bond. That was the whole thing that started with, I thought, is to generate money to pay that back. Not out of the town's fund, but out of the money that comes from the pier itself.
But we're too early to be able to
Well,
determine the revenue that we're gonna get based on the pier and what it's gonna be when we spend it.
I do agree with you. We're early involved. We're early in on this. We're early in trying to take this money and put it over into the pier fund to pay it off, and we're gonna have $3 million left sitting in the pier fund. We're early on all that. What Zion's doing right now is give us a budget and tell us where we're at. Now we're back on worried about that $1.5 million that the American Rescue. Some people so worried about where that's at and what we're gonna do with it. So we just pull it here and put it over here. But why not just leave it where it's at for now until we get it to that? So we're jumping the gun now. If I'm not right, you tell me I'm not right. We hire you as the financial director, and I have a lot of trust in what you say. If some people want to be the financial director, make them apply for this that job. But it's got to where it's every time Diane comes up with something, tells us something, there's nothing wrong. It's nothing wrong with questioning. We're not questioning. We're calling Diane. You're calling Diane out on big stuff. You're saying that she's not right on what she's saying.
Nobody said that.
What I would do,
Sure does sound like
That's
it.
an
all right, what I would do if I were you, and I'm not you, I understand that. But if I were you, I would leave the American Rescue money where it is. If you're going to know where the pier stands in March, Is that not, that's in this fiscal year, in March, you're gonna know. Hopefully, we should know a lot more by March than we know now. If we make the payment we need to make to the bond in October 1st, they get their $400,000. We see what other kind of bills are coming, and there are some bills that are coming for the pier. I mean, I have seen some of the projections, but I still don't think we're gonna need the American Rescue money. I would leave it in American Rescue where it is, and if you want to pay that bond off early, which I understand you possibly want to do that in 2028, what I would do is I would allocate more money, understanding right from the beginning, what we're getting for hospitality and local aid tax is more money than we ever have gotten in the past because of the settlement with the county. So we're getting way more money, and I didn't budget anything close to what we actually got last year, but who knows if that was an anomaly that people came because they wanted to get out of their houses and next year won't be as big. But anyway.
I can tell you, just so you all know, met with Bill Servant on something else. And just so you know, up until November timeframe, beginning of November, right now, everything we got is booked.
Well, that's good, but I mean, you don't know.
Just FYI.
Go forward. But
Yes, through him,
But
yes.
not everything.
Yeah, I'm just what he said.
so what I would do is I would take what we normally transfer from hospitality to the pier, and I would take what we would normally, which is about $300,000, which covers the bond, which has always been the way it was planned out with the financial analysts when we got the bond and the whole thing. The pier, hospitality, and the local aid, and A tax were just pay the bond. That was always the intention. It was never general fund. So if you wanted to go look forward into the future, I would say you take the $300,000 we're always taking out of hospitality to pay for the bond, and you take another $300,000 at the same time, make them equal, and put that money and leave it in hospitality, or you can put it in the pier if that's what you want to do, and you just have enough money saved by that time to pay that debt in 2028. There isn't any reason why you can't do that. We're bringing in over $2 million when we used to bring in $1 million. So, I mean, I think you could do it that way. Plus in 2025 or 2024, you're going to get the settlement from the county for the rest of the hospitality. It's probably going to be around $260,000, almost a payment. So you would have that you could put in there. I think there's ways to do it there are ways to do it, that we can still pay off that bond in 2028 if that's what your intention is to do. That was always we could do it. It was always a time we could pay it, but it was never said that that's what our goal is. If that's what your goal is, we can do that. We cannot use, in my opinion, local aid tax because if you're going to get the SAFER grant and you're going to get the firefighters, 100% of local aid tax, which is now supporting general fund, would go there to support general fund, but it would be eaten up by the SAFER grant.
But
For
it's
those people.
25,
But again,
26.
the bond option that was selected was at a higher interest rate, but was selected because it had the shortest term.
It was the lowest interest rate.
That we could call it as early as possible.
It was the lowest interest rate
For 15 years.
for 15 years with a call provision on it.
Yeah, with a shorter call provision.
Correct. So if
There
that's
were
what you
lower interest rates on 15-year bonds, but they had later call dates on it. This one has an early call date on it. So, the point of putting this bond out there was back in mid-2018 was to facilitate a cash flow of the pier to be able to, pay the bills and be able to wait for FEMA reimbursements, to be able to pay the bills and wait for the hospitality and accommodation tax allocations, whatever that we knew at the time. But the point was that we did not want to carry debt.
Okay,
That
that's fine.
we have wherewithal that we need to pay that debt off as soon as possible. This town has always been debt-free, and there's no reason to think we want to go forward carrying debt over our heads.
Well, that's no
For
problem.
those eventual years that, we're also afraid of, that we don't make our hospitality tax numbers and so forth. So, if we have the money, if we're not touching that bond fund principle, we're paying our bills out of all these other windfall things that we've gotten that nobody ever saw coming from COVID hit. We didn't know the state was gonna give us another million. We didn't know the state was gonna give us 2.32 million, whatever it is, in American Rescue. Let's use that money. Let's not touch our bond fund so that we know come 2028, you know, we're paying back a bond with its own funds. So by the end of the day, it's done.
I just,
And we're, it's, in
I disagree
2028,
totally.
we're out of
Yeah.
debt.
I don't disagree.
Well, I got an email that was sent on the August 20th, no, that was me, but it was sent on December 15th, and it basically says what Cindy said. I'm going to read it if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just so you all know why we did what we did, because attached fine summary of bids, we will be accepting the JP Morgan Chase option C2 for 15 years, rate of 2.18%, total debt service of $4,752,000, average annual payment of $331,000, was closer to $332,000. This was chosen for its low interest rate for a 15-year bond, lowest payment, to ensure that we have the funds coming to make them and the ability to pay off after 2028 if our revenues are greater than expected. So that's what that approval was based on. So it was, I mean, if we had the money to pay it off, yes, ma'am. Because,
But we also approved in this budget, tearing buildings down.
yes, sir.
Look, take the money that we didn't spend last year on, courthouse and council chamber, and look at, adding police department. We put that in the budget for a reason, but it needs to be done,
Yes, sir.
and we have money to do it. Now, it may come out of the American Rescue, it doesn't matter, it's in there. And we need to proceed with that.
Yeah, and I don't disagree, but I think we should do both
I'm
without
not the
affecting
least bit
either of them,
concerned about
as
us
long as we
in
wait.
10 years or 6 years generating $2 million to pay off the bond. And I'm not even sure I want to pay off the bond because it's almost like free money.
But I think honestly, I think both are attainable. We can move forward. It's gonna, I mean, even on the buildings, you decide what you wanna do, it's gonna take a year to get everything in place to even move forward. So by the time we get to where we can actually do anything, that pier's done.
Yeah.
And so we will know that. So all that money that we need there is there. I don't think either side is gonna affect either side. I think we're gonna have money to do both of them based on what we've got coming in, based on what we've got projected, based on, as Sidney called it, the windfalls that we've had. So if you put it someplace and you just hold it there till we get the pier done, we're not gonna be able to spend it anyway until then, and it's gonna get done. I don't know how else to say it. What do you think?
That's what I would do. I'm not done.
we jumped off the pier now.
I've kind of put them both together, yes, sir, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I was responding.
We don't seem to get one thing solved, we're on something else. If we want to go ahead and jump off the buildings, we can do that. Means solve the thing. So,
Well, the first item was budget review.
Yes,
We're not really supposed to be talking about the pier bond issue until C, if you want to be technical about it.
yes,
yeah. Well, we just answer the questions as they come up. I think that's important because they're all kind of interrelated to each other anyway. But, I mean,
I think that all A, B, and C are intertwined.
yes, sir, I agree.
You're not gonna be able to do one without the
Yeah,
other.
it's really,
I don't think it matters what order we talk about, as long as they're all addressed.
yes, sir.
And we, as a council, come to a conclusion on what's an acceptable thing. What we think should be right.
Well,
But-
I think the council in 2021 generally agreed that the bond was there for cash flow purposes, for, emergent issues, should we need it. It was never intended to be a fallback or a permanent solution or a permanent debt obligation. That once the pier was done and, we had the early call date, that it got paid off and the town was back to being debt-free, as we've enjoyed over the past decades. We weren't gonna go forward with having that debt hanging over our head. And while that's a low interest rate, it's not free. It does cost money to maintain that bond. So, the sooner we can pay it off and, we have that money set aside wherever the heck it's at, then, come October 2028, write the check and it go away. And that was the whole purpose. That's what council agreed to. That was the approach we were taking. So I don't know why we're even considering doing something otherwise.
It was my understanding that when we got the bond, that the bond was to be used as a float, because we needed to reimburse our construction and our engineer and our everything for their services prior to us getting the money back from FEMA on our grant. So we had to have that bond money as a float to be able to pay our debt, in a timely manner to our contractors. So, and now it seems like that purpose is turned about so that we're looking at long-term debt instead of looking at the short-term.
Again, and it's, the council decides based on the email that I sent y'all, because I was brand new, so I don't remember all of it. But by that email, I was under the impression that the 4 million was, if we could do it in any way, shape, or form, we pay it off in 2028. And I'm not saying that's what y'all want to do. I'm saying that's why we,
That's what the prior council
yes,
decided
that's
to
why
do.
we set it up that way.
Why can't we set it up like that? Why can't we set it up where we're making these payments for this bond and set extra money out of our taxes aside before we can pay that $2 million off in 28? Why do we have to jump the rescue money and put it in there right now? We have that set aside to use that on. Why can't we do just what she just asked us? We can pay so much on the bond and so much into a fund that pays that pier off, whatever the $2 million is.
I'm not saying we can.
Well, if we don't touch the principal of the bond, by definition, it is there in 2028 to pay what we owe JP Morgan.
That's it.
We're only going to owe 2-point-something million at the end of in 2028, because we still, even though we do whatever we want to do, we still have the principal payment and we still have the interest payments on a yearly basis until 2028.
Well, let me ask Diana a question. Based on what you just said,
That to be an emergency fund that has no restrictions on it.
We can do whatever.
Yeah,
I don't have a problem
I
as long as we have a
guess,
plan.
once you get to the 2028, if you've got that money, then you pay it off, then you've got a little over 2 million because of interest, which you can put into the building program. Because
Or
it would,
wherever else you
am I
happen to
right?
need it.
If I'm off, please tell me.
Well, but we don't know what's gonna happen between now and 2028.
Agreed.
So if we decide that bond principle is a last resort, we have no other funds, we absolutely have to do something, an emergency of whatever sort, that should be our last resort. Because we need to ensure that in 2028, we have at least that 2.4 million or whatever it is to pay JP Morgan and be debt free. And if that means we've got another 2 million still set aside, that's a bonus for the town. That's a bonus for the town.
So it's not stopping the building program.
Well, our
No.
building
I agree.
program, no matter what we do,
We use other funds first.
our building program can't go anywhere for at least a year.
Yes,
And the pier's going to be all done.
that's correct.
But if whatever we decide on our building program, we need to start on it to basically get it analyzed and get it,
Yeah,
the
whether it's one
architect to
building or
figure
a
out
master
what we're
plan.
gonna do. So,
Yeah, and whether it's one building or a master plan for a complex, you need to have someone on board so they can do it, so I can give you actual prices.
No, but if you were paying close attention, since I assume we're back under the master plan, We've already killed the pier, we'll move on to killing town hall. But if you look at the presentation that the engineers did on the master plan and all the examples they gave, that's an additional town commitment of, I think it was $3.5 to $15.5 million for this new complex.
Can-
Well, to actually, no, to actually build a complex.
Can
That's
I,
what
He did say it would cost us
Yeah.
that much. He said for a project that they built down at us, he never give us a price on what it would
Well,
cost us
but,
to build.
but he showed us to actually build a new complex, which is what we evaluated in the beginning, back in June of '21, when we were deciding, should we tear buildings down and rebuild? Should we buy the Coldwell Banker building? All that was reevaluated. And we had estimates, and granted, they were back of envelope kind of thing. And that was pre-COVID, and the 400% cost of materials had gone up. We said that to build a new complex, to actually build a complex, have an architect, have the engineer, actually build it, be able to move into it, was going to be upwards of $5 million. That's why we chose 1.189 to go across the street and build council chambers across the street.
And then we had a new election, and some of the council members came on board and said, we don't think that this, we want to do it. Maybe we want to change it, looking back across the street. And it was agreed upon, or sort of agreed upon, to hold off that $500,000 that was over across the street until we could get a plan on whether we could, what would it cost to build it back across the street, back across the street. Well, that was the talk.
yeah,
Bill,
Not quite, but go ahead, Bill.
yeah, okay. The plan was, and this is Bill's, what I have was to bring these guys on board because you're right, there was some confusion. Were we gonna build one building? Were we going to build a government complex? Were we just gonna build an EOC that the police and the fire could use? I mean, there were several ideas that were floating out there. In order to do any of those ideas, I need an architect, I need an engineer. I need to bring them in. Now, we didn't do that with the pier. We've had some issues. We rushed it with the building because we had mold and we needed to get people out. We followed our process. It was taking a little bit longer. And so when these guys made their presentation, they made the presentation to show what they could do. They talked about they've built complexes, they've built individual buildings, and they were by far above everybody else. What we were asking for is if you let us bring them on, we will bring them to you. It can be a workshop, it can be a fishing meet, whatever you want. And and you will turn around and tell them as a council, this is what we want. I can't build a council chamber unless I get someone to design it and give you actual prices. I can give you guesstimates. A year ago, 7 months ago, what was it? $70 a square foot? I don't know. It probably now close to $100 a square foot. But I need to get these guys on to give you the information so we can make, or y'all can make the decision and we'll make a recommendation on what you want. I mean, be it a complex, be it over there. But the first step to make this process happen is get these guys before you. And everyone said, well, I had some folks talk to me about, well, they didn't say how much it will cost. We did a request for qualifications, which means what we do when you do a request for qualifications, you find the most qualified people to do that job. And whether it's one builder or whether it's a complex, you bring, and once you guys say, yeah, we're on board with that, let's use them. And then we will negotiate costs and stuff. And if it doesn't work out, then we go to the number two guy. Normally it works out because they know what a fair price is. However, in saying that, so the next go, if they came before you and y'all just want to do the one building, we can do the one building. I can give you a cost in the front, in the back across the street, and the one we're at, I give you a cost in the front. But I need these guys to give you a good cost because we've got time to do it correctly. If you want to build a master plan to say, you know what, in 10 years, this is what we want the government complex to look like. We want it all in one area. We want this, and guess what? We're gonna do this building first, that building second, and that building third, and then we're gonna make the parking look like this. We can do that. But I need them on board just to figure out next steps. Does that make sense?
So where are we with this? They're working on the price to give you to do the work.
No, I need to get you, well, there was two of them, the parking guy, the contract's being reviewed by our attorney, but I need you to tell me to negotiate with them, and then I can move forward with next steps.
Did they not actually tell us that they could give us a price on either side of the road? In
They
the
did.
meeting that we had?
Yes,
They
Did
said
they
that,
not say that?
they said that if we hired them to do the thing, that the first thing they would do is get together with council and find out what council wanted.
yeah,
Right.
And if we wanted it over there, we wanted it over here, or whatever. And then
yeah.
after that evaluation, we would do.
And they'll give you a price for the same building on each side.
It's been my stance on that, because you've got to realize that I didn't find out until that meeting that the American Rescue was built into there. You know, so my whole thing is that if we isolate that fund, the American Rescue Fund and the other funds, and keep it over here, then I'd be more than happy to start. We need to do forward planning. Okay, we're doing our 10-year plan on what it is. We need
Yes,
to
sir.
figure out where the town's going to be and where our building's going to be and everything in 10 years. And I mean, that's something that we need to do. So I think that we need the architect to help us figure out what we're going to do.
I agree.
But I'm not willing to do that until we've isolated those funds.
Well, what I also think is part of our comprehensive planning process with the planning commission, we can always be looking at what are some other beneficial uses of that property. I mean, we have a town hall. We know it's going to be cheaper to build one small building than it is a new municipal complex. So what are some other purposes that maybe that property, prime real estate on the east side of 17, can be used for that serves the community? I mean, there may be other purposes. You know, we may want to make it into a full civic center. You know, maybe it has like, you know, the county has down the street. You know, it's got a gym, it's got a running track, it's got a pool, you know, whatever. I mean, until we go through that comprehensive planning process and say, okay, here's an opportunity. Let's think outside the box, let's brainstorm, let's kind of look at what the demographics may look like in the future. What's the best use for this property?
And
We need to hire somebody to be able to do that.
yeah, and the good.
Yeah, we
and-
do. They're called the planning commission and the contractors that are doing the comprehensive plan. That's what they do.
But-
They look to the future.
Yeah, but they don't put together a
Well, no,
building
they're not gonna
master
design
plan.
the building.
Yeah,
They're gonna look at what's the best use of the
Yeah.
property.
And yes, and in saying that, and Sabrina, if I'm wrong, please jump in and tell me I'm wrong. And saying that, we're hoping based on this plan and the way she's actually put it together, she's done an awesome job. Is we're hoping to have that comp plan completed by July, I believe, correct?
Yes.
And so she's, you know, by doing that,
Is
she's,
this property in it?
yeah,
Yes.
oh, yeah, all of,
There.
yeah, it'll be, the goal of the comp plan is 10 years from now, what does this town look like?
Right.
And then what we do, and that's when we jump into goals and objectives, because they're gonna give us 10 years worth of goals and objectives to make happen. Yes, sir.
On this plan, we know, as of right now, the police department is busting this, we're going to have to do something about it pretty quick. Is that not, is that not right now, are y'all not busting at the same time, y'all don't have enough room? So would it not be cheaper, as Cindy says, if we build a town hall, not town hall, council chambers and a police department across the street, then it would be build one over here and turn around and build another over here for the police department? Would that not be cheaper to combine them things?
See, it's my understanding that we weren't talking, when we were talking or hiring the architect about basically doing all the things. The first thing that I thought they were tasked to do was look at the police department and do the expansion on that. And when we do the police department, then we would also automatically put our court in there and put our council chamber in there. But no talk house, that could be a
That's-
plan for the future.
Yeah, that's your 10 years down, yeah, that's 10 years, but,
Right, right.
But it would, don't make sense to me, and it might make sense to everybody else here. If we decide as a council that we want to put that council chamber over across Rosewood Buildings that now, but we're gonna have to turn right around and spend another $2 million across the road to fix Kenny's police department.
well,
Why don't we just go ahead with the master plan to do that section over there?
Well, but he's already got $1.5 million in this year's budget to fix his problem.
That's American Rescue.
And we already have 600,000 or 700,000 in the budget. We've got
Yes, ma'am.
600,000 left to build the council, the multipurpose room over across the street. That's already in the budget, that's already been in works.
That's $2
Plus
million.
Kenny may be able to get a grant or something for communications or something like that, part of his.
I think,
new facility.
I think the goal, and you're 100% correct in those numbers. I think the goal that we were having, I shouldn't say, I believe staff is if we're going to build a new chambers, council chambers or whatever, if you know, let's do it so it helps us in the future. What I'm talking about, if we need other offices and stuff in there that can help the police and the fire because they're both together. In addition to that, we need an EOC because, you know, we don't know when it's going to happen, but we're going to have disasters and we need to be ready for them. And so combining all them and dual usage but again, that comes down to the plan. Do we need it
I think
over
the
one
plan
side
is
versus the other?
premature. I mean, undertaking, moving town hall was a surprise in amongst, doing, constructing the pier.
Yes, ma'am.
So, we were looking for, let's not embark on a whole new science project.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's just get everyone out of harm's way because, we're still in the Civic Center. Civic Center has mold too.
Yes, ma'am.
It's not like we should still be there either. So, we said, we put in the budget in 2021 that we would build an additional space over at the Coldwell Banker Building for a council chamber, a civic center, a courtroom.
Mm-hmm.
That adds value to that property should some point in the future we do a master plan, evaluate all potential uses of the old town hall property and what we want it to become. We still have an asset across the street. So, I just think we're a little premature, and with Kenny's request for expansion of the police department, there's a whole corridor of public safety corridor from the police department through the fire department.
Yes,
You know, there's the holding pen, whatever you guys call that. And there's the skate park. All that space can be used for the public safety corridor.
Yes, ma'am.
And then look at, that can then go into, once the pier's done, maybe we do that. And then we start looking at, okay, what do we need the old town hall property to become? That's when you start looking at, your master plan, and do you really want to expend that much money to move back across the street? And eventually sell the property that we bought.
But we can't do any of that without the architect or out somebody's.
Exactly. But and
You gotta
the
tell
other,
them what he's designing.
Well, they said, they told us in that presentation that they would work with council, and council will be the one that directed them on what to do, and what to build and where to build.
Well, even what you said there, Steve, they put out a survey and asked the citizens of Surfside what they would rather have this place. And it was more in favor of bringing it back across the street in the future. Don't mean it all has to be that time. But that's what the citizens of our town, not just what council, that's what our citizens.
That's not what I've heard from.
yeah, I think the good thing about the comp plan
Robert's
is,
sitting right back in the back.
yeah, but I think the good thing about the comp plan is there will be 3 or 4 citizen workshops as part of the comp plan, which could add, and again, if it gets done in July and we're not finishing compared to March timeframe.
Again,
Because I'm not, I think we can do it all, it's
I
just
think we should
how we
stick
do
with
it.
our original plan
I disagree.
and move forward, because all of this is just going to postpone it additional years before it can be done.
Rob, on the survey that you done for the town, was it more in favor of moving town hall back than it was leaving it where it's at in the future?
My recollection, again, this has been a few months since I've looked at that data, is that it was fairly split in that people would like it over there, but they understand the reason for moving. They want to be fiscally responsible, so if it's not being fiscally responsible to move everything back over, they're okay with it where it is, but anything else that would be built, the council chamber and that stuff, they'd like to see it on that side.
Absolutely.
But moving of the entire town hall, they're okay, my recollection of what they said, saying, would be to kind of, it's okay to
Absolutely.
be where it is.
But they, the majority of the people that, when you're asked what they'd rather see built on the site we have across the road or back on Old Town property. Overall, it was more in favor of moving it back.
Again,
Anything except the town hall, as of right now.
they were interested in having council chambers over there, court chambers over there, they're okay with, again, this is my recollection of the data, the town hall kind of remaining, again, some would like to see it moved, they said, but it's all about fiscal responsibility, if it's not gonna be fiscal responsible to move the entire thing over there, they're okay with it staying where it is.
Yeah, do it for $600,000. Yeah, do it for $600,000, because that's what's in the budget. That's what's left from what we approved in 2021.
We don't have that much.
Right at 500, that we had to
Bill.
get the road,
Well,
but we've
You
got
can buy the
money.
land.
do it for what was budgeted,
Yeah, we've got money.
either side of the highway.
So I think we
I mean,
should-
what we agreed to, what we agreed to in January was that we would go out with the RFQ to get a quote on what it would be to build council chambers next to the new town hall or build council chambers at the old town hall property. We never talked about developing a new master plan for the property.
And we can do that.
Maybe we
I
should
got the
put that
guys
on the
ready.
agenda. We should talk about it. But I think that, and this is my personal thing too, I think that we ought to be talking about our needs and not our wants right now.
Agreed.
We said that one of our needs right now is to get the police department out of harm's way and to get our new council chamber. Those are our needs. Where it's gonna be or what we're gonna do, that's still to be determined, but we need to have an expert be there to help us guide on where it should be and what we need to do, so. But here again, I've said that I'm not willing to vote on doing that unless we isolate the money that's sitting there so that we have it as a backup. So, and I talked to Diana about that. Diana said that it wouldn't be a problem. So I don't know where we stand on that, but that's something we should put on the agenda and we should be talking about it on what we're gonna do.
If it's getting the plan is key. Even if we hired them in October, we won't get an answer from them until
July.
next year.
Yes.
Late next year or mid next year. And at that point, we'll have hopefully the final numbers on the pier and know where we stand. But even if we pay them, we don't have to break ground on anything until we have the money.
That's
And
true.
I feel like we're gonna have the money once we have a plan.
No, they never said anything in that demonstration that they gave us. We gave them the request for qualifications, but they never gave us anything about how much it would cost them to come to work for us.
No, that's, if you all say you like them because it was a request for qualifications, if you think they got the qualifications to do like we recommended they do, then what we would do is we'd get back with them and we would negotiate a price to do whatever it is that needs to be done. And then once we've negotiated, and it's, this architect gets paid this much, whatever it is, however they do it. And then we would bring it to you and then you would, whether it's one building, a master plan, whatever you want it to be, then we would have a price based on that. We'll just follow one of the process. processes.
What's-
You can't do a request for proposal
What's our
because we
next
don't
step?
know.
Can I ask something, Chris?
You're telling me I can negotiate with
So
them.
do you bring in council?
I will do
Is
that,
that
yes, sir.
what you want to have
Yeah.
to vote on?
John, on this, when we met with these people about this master
Yes, sir.
plan, or about a plan to build a building, not necessarily a master plan, how long of time did they tell you that it would take to get some kind of plan out there to us?
Just a few months,
A few months?
yes,
6 months, maybe
less than that probably.
less than 6 months?
Do we have an estimate on what that would cost us to get
No,
that?
we would have to engage them and give them the task order of what we wanted them to start on. They'd be fine with any scope of work that we wanted to give them, but we would have to engage them, contractor, and then present them with our first task. It may be a series of tasks. The first task might be price comparison.
Did they not even say that they'd come in and help us kind of decide what we really do need as they talk to the people and all these other products, maintenance departments, to see what we actually needed in a building?
Right, yeah.
That's
that was-
part of the process.
That's part of the plan that they had presented to us at the time, was it not?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why they seem to be the best qualified company, because they had a full range of services and a full range of professionals that can come in and evaluate our space needs, do a space needs analysis, and then either design a building, or do a comparison, or ultimately do a master plan of the whole town hall complex, if that was desired, but it doesn't have to be that whole big thing, it could be a smaller slice.
But that's after we hire them to do the work.
Yeah, we have to tell them
Yes.
that we want you to come work for us.
Yeah.
But we don't have to put out an RFP to hire them.
No,
We've already done- we did a
the
request
legal
for qualifications.
process For an architect from the RFQ, which we've done, and we've had a selection process, which we've done, and they were the most qualified firm based on the selection committee's opinion. Set out the
Don't they need to give us a price?
They have to come.
No, we haven't given them the scope of work yet. Once we give them the scope of work.
Then they'll give us a
then we can
price.
Negotiate a price.
But we can't give them the scope of work until after we've already hired them.
No, we give them the scope of work and request a price,
Right. And it has to be agreed
and
upon.
then
what
we
the scope
hire
of
them
work
for
is.
that scope of work.
The real next step is what is gonna be the scope of work, then we can, council can give Bill direction on to engage them. And then
So
we
if
can
we
take-
were gonna do that, then don't you think that council should meet with them and sort of provide and give input on the scope of work?
Yes, sir.
That could be arranged. They're more than
No.
eager to help us.
No,
This council's too separated.
no,
It'd be better off
staff,
if we.
Tell us
talk
what you
amongst
want.
Ourselves,
We'll come up with something.
come up with the scope of work. I don't think we want to embarrass them again, us bickering up here.
well, I think the staff needs to recommend to council what is the prudent fiscally responsible approach to take to get a quote from them on what they are designing, what we recommend to build. I mean, the one thing we have to get away from is coming to council and saying, what do you want us to do? Council's job is to approve, accept, or deny staff recommendations. So, we're getting too far down in the weeds with all the various council members, that staff needs to decide, this is our recommended approach. And then council decides, I agree, I disagree, and as a whole, we decide, no, we want to go with a bigger plan. So then you go back and you develop the new task list for a bigger plan. You come back to council, they say, yes, that's exactly the approach we want to take. You go get the price, you come back and say, okay, your master plan is going to cost you X dollars to develop the plan, not even just to build, but to develop the plan. And then we decide yes or no, we're going to do that. But, I mean, staff needs to get to the place where they're bringing recommendations to council, that we're not bickering about what the recommendation needs to include. We either vote for it or we vote against it, and we live with the decision of council. I mean, that's just the way it's supposed to work in a municipality.
So Bill, you can get together with John and do that.
Oh, we'll have it for you, not tomorrow, but we'll have it the next agenda.
That's all we need. This is our proposed scope of work for the architects and engineers to move forward with this council chamber, whatever it is.
Yeah, at that point, we can bring them in.
have you had any contact with them after the presentation?
Just outside afterwards, and reiterated that we were still a little bit early in the process. We would get back.
They weren't happy when they left, were they?
They were a little confused. They thought we were a little further along our process than we actually were. But they said, just let us know. We'll be happy to come in.
Yeah, and I mean, if in that presentation, they can give us some budgetary estimate of what it would cost to develop that. I mean, not anything we would hold them to, not a binding offer on it, but, budgetary. Give us a thumbnail approach as to what it's gonna cost to do that scenario.
Yeah, well, once
That would
we
help in the
give them our
decision.
top priority, and then they'll give us a proposal on it.
And that would probably be a good thing to have in a workshop.
John and I will figure that out.
Have residents there, public comments.
I don't see why that can't be at the next council meeting, or the one after. I mean,
Yeah, not tomorrow.
I'm not that one, but I mean, even if it's the one in October, I don't think we need to call a special meeting to discuss it. I think that could be a business item, a regular scheduled council meeting. That's what they're for.
Yeah, once we make a recommendation, get you on board with it, it'll be easy, you're right.
Okay, are we done with the budget review?
I think we're done with the budget review, the master building plan, and the pier bond review. I think we beat them all pretty well.
Well, going back to your bond, it would require us 6 years, set aside $400,000 a year to pay that bond back in 2028.
You've got it right now, we can use the interest, of not only the principal, which we'll already have saved, but we'll use the interest that we get on it, which isn't gonna be as much.
Well, that's, depends on how much the year comes.
Well,
But
that's the whole purpose of putting it there, so that the pier comes first.
Well,
I will,
19 square foot. And it was that, but that's different, sir.
well, but
say
I
that
mean,
again,
we're,
I didn't hear that, I'm sorry.
I mean, we're already,
It's rented for,
but we're already budgeted to pay the minimum on the bond regardless of whatever happens.
Yes, ma'am.
So come 2028, whomever is sitting here, it's going to be their decision to call the bond or not. All we're saying right now is, let's not touch it if we don't have to. Because we do have all these other windfalls that we weren't expecting, that, we should be using those first and leave the bond alone so that whomever is sitting here in 2028, they can decide that, okay, well, I still have $4 million in that bond left. Let's just pay it off, and now I've got pool money to put on something else. Or at that time, they might want to say, yeah, let's keep this debt hanging over our heads and take that $4 million and build a new Taj Mahal council building. Whatever. And leave the debt out there over the town for the next, what,
To 35.
15, another 12 years? Whatever.
Well,
That'll be somebody else's.
in a perfect world, if we go get these people to do the architect thing, and let's say that they work with the police department, and they get the police department, fire department, council chamber, whatever, and they work out a plan on that, right?
Yes,
That's gonna take them 6 months, 8 months to do. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Approximately, they claim about 6 months.
all right, 6 months, and then, from the time that, it's probably gonna take another 8 months for construction.
Yeah, it takes a while to get the right people on board because you gotta put out for bid and I know what we did with the town hall we're in now went kind of quickly, but we had an emergency, so we followed emergency procedures. I can't do that on this, so it's going to take a while, but it's,
I think that, and we made the decision to take them out of the civic center and put them over in the police department. So, I mean, we're the ones that jammed them up.
yeah.
And where it's only, so many hours a day and shift change and stuff like that, we need to be proactive and work out a plan to.
And we do have some of them
Well,
over in
but
the
is
town
the
hall building
annex
too.
so much worse than the civic center? I mean, I don't understand. We moved people out of planning, building, and zoning because it was so bad. We moved people out of the annex because it's so bad. And somehow we think that that middle place in the civic center is just clean and hunky-dory. I mean, there's still a sense of urgency here. It's not like the problem
Agreed.
that was there as to why we left has disappeared.
They're not staying there for a whole shift.
The exposure is very low at the, civic center.
Well,
Yeah.
But
It is.
we still want to get it done as quickly and as
Right,
efficiently as
right.
possible.
I mean,
Yes,
there's
ma'am.
still an urgency. It's not like
Oh, yeah,
the problem all of a sudden went away.
agreed.
I mean, there's still a sense of urgency of getting out of the civic center.
Gotcha.
Don't look behind the cabinet.
Well, you don't need a vote of council to
No, no.
tear the old town hall down.
Yeah, it's in our
Because that
budget.
was in the budget, that was already done, so are you?
We're already moving forward with
As
that, yes,
long
sir.
as the quote comes in at 100,000.
Yes,
If it comes in more than
Well,
100,000, it would require a council.
yeah, then we bring it back to
you.
y'all.
To go get a request for proposal on that.
We've already
It's
started
already
that.
gone out. That's what I read.
Yes,
Already sent it,
we're
right?
already moving forward with that. So sooner rather than later. My goal more than that is the safety. I don't want when it gets cold, people sneaking in and getting hurt.
And we need to make a decision, this is a decision later with the skate park, is it gonna stay or where's it gonna go, or what are we gonna do with it?
That'll happen in the plan as the architects come up with as to how to serve the
I
police
think it should go.
department.
Personal opinion. I think it's a safety issue. Mhm.
We don't use it for that.
Well, it used to be on South 20, South 13, and where the parking lot is. But they were raising hell in the neighborhood. The neighborhood didn't want them over there, and there were people getting hurt.
It's
So they
very
put it in the
seldom.
police
I don't
department
see
where
it
it's
hardly ever
Yeah, well,
used.
yeah, let's not go down that rabbit hole, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Please.
Late at night,
Is that right?
after 9.
Y'all work me too hard. I'm in bed then.
Yeah, let's not go down that rabbit hole. That'll come when we get the proposal back from the architects.
So
I
that's
got good
not,
direction.
that's
I know
not
what
in
I'm doing.
tomorrow's council meeting, but the council meeting after that,
Yes.
we're gonna put on to,
And I should have
Or the
the,
one after, depending on how long they need to get the pertinent information together. We don't want to rush something and then end up with chaos trying to get everything together, when we need it for the meeting. So,
amen to that.
I mean, we will say in one of the next few council meetings, we want to have this presentation, but let's give it its due course to get accurate and complete and appropriate information and everybody a chance to do a quality job instead of doing everything under an artificial pressure deadline.
and are you gonna work with finance and everything and try to do something to
Yes.
like isolate those funds?
We will
I'm not
come up,
trying to, I'm just trying to put them over there so that, it's a rainy day.
yes, sir, we'll come up with several alternatives and we'll recommend the one we like the best. And then we'll also come up with an alternative on what we're gonna show in reference to the money being spent.
Yeah, and what's the
Because
source
most of
of
that,
those?
we've got the information.
What's the source of the money?
Yeah, we've got the information. It's just a matter of pulling
Yeah,
it
but
off
I
the
think we
spreadsheet.
need to allow a quality job being done, not an artificial deadline to just pull something out of the air.
Agreed.
We tend to default to self-imposed deadlines, unreasonable deadlines, and then we end up in chaos. So let's do this right and do it once,
Yeah, I blame that on
and
Bill.
then move forward.
Just around the pier,
Yes, sir.
anything in the deadlines that will be up or when the pier's looking.
I'm being told March. I am waiting for the updated, and I haven't looked at my emails. I could have it now. I am waiting for the updated schedule, and the reason being is that's got to be a part of our vendor contracts. We've got 3 contracts that we're working on. All of them are coming pretty good. Well, two of them are coming really good. One of them is a little bit slow, but it's still going in the right direction. It's probably the better way of saying it. But that needs to be in the contract because uh, we're doing our best to work with our contractor to do the upfits. Of course, we can't direct them, but, oh, I'm sorry. I'm s- Yeah, it's coming well. It's looking at March. Sorry, thank you. I get long-winded on some of this stuff. So much.
Okay, well, it's 11 o'clock. Why don't we take a break for a few minutes?
Thank you.
This conference will now be recorded.
Civility discussion, which I'm going to next. But is there anything on the top three subjects, the budget review, the master plan review, or the peer review, that anybody still has any questions? Okay. Moving right along in the civility discussion. We've had a problem we have always had a problem with council about council members being disrespectful to other council members. And that's not doing anybody any good. That isn't doing any productive thing. So what I'd like to do is talk to everybody in council and try to get some recommendations on what we can do as a council to get along better with each other. I know that we have different personalities. I know we have to taking cheap shots at everybody. It's not the way to do it. And I've had complaints on both sides from everybody on people who don't like the attitude of other council members. I've gone to the municipal association and talked to them there. And Charlie at the municipal association told me, and not everybody was here, but at the last municipal association meeting we had in Charleston, they gave us a demonstration or gave us a talk on what's known as civility, and that's being kind to everybody. And they started by taking I guess it was Lions Club or something with their civility pact creed is, and did it, and the municipal association has worked out something like that. Charlie said that he would be more than willing to come and talk to us about it at one of our next council meetings, and I just wanted to see what you guys think about that. So, is there anybody who has any discussion on that?
Yeah, I think Bill mentioned that Charlie had indicated that there was a class that would talk about the role of council and, you know, professional decorum and a few of those other things. I mean, we also seem to have a division of understanding of what is the role of council as well that I think would benefit from that kind of class that, you know, we're, like I said earlier, we're the ones that are supposed to approve or modify a recommendation. We're not the ones that are supposed to be providing the recommendations. And then they come back and you know, we approve them or reject them. You know, recommendations are supposed to be coming to us. So I think we could all benefit from the class that Charlie had talked about.
Well, I think that I'm going to ask Bill if he'll get in touch with Charlie and try to set it up and make it for him to come over. Now, he offered to do that.
Yeah, it will not be hard. And he also said that there are some other local governments that have actually created a civility resolution. Or was it an ordinance? And
There's
it,
a section in the ordinance.
yeah, and it puts a little teeth into it. And
You know, I checked on that when I talked to Charlie. Charlie also sent me the ordinance that
Okay.
Charleston did. And Charleston did a thing where, you know, it's against their ordinance to do civility problems in there, and there's consequences for it. But you know, in reading that, it takes a majority vote in order to do anything, supermajority in order to do anything to sanction anybody for their bad behavior. I don't think, I think that we just need to come about, we need to get a better communication line between us and that, everybody needs to quit putting everybody down.
We're all on the same team. I agree.
So does that, is there any discussion on that? Michael, do you have anything to say?
Actually, I think we did pretty well. We disagree on a lot of things, but I don't think we're very disagreeable.
Yeah, we did.
No. And if we disagree, he's always on one side and I'm on the other. But we get along okay.
Yeah, I think the checks and balances are what having a council is all about. We don't want everybody thinking the same way. But we want a council that's willing to share ideas and perspectives and maybe have someone change their mind as a result, say, okay, well, yeah, that is a better approach. I didn't think of it that way, or I never considered that. But right now, we just seem to butt heads, and I think having that class would be beneficial.
Well, the problem that I have is that, by putting down other council members, every single council member that's up here was voted by the residents to be in their position, to represent the residents, not to fight against each other and not to do whatever, but to work for a common good, and to make decisions that benefit all the residents. So, I understand that people have their associates that they deal with, have different opinions. I know that people on council are going to have different opinions on what to do. But we need to work it out so we're civil to each other in the execution of our duties and our responsibilities. So with that, and that's all I'm going to bring it back. Do you have anything to say?
Well, we have a government.
I asked you.
We have a government now that's very uncivil with each other. And it's terrible. Our own federal government. And even the president calling out one group against another. And I think we don't get that. We should try to work together. Even if we have differences, we should be able to listen and not call a name or stuff and talk with each other. And I was in the council meeting, and there was a number of good things to talk about. And it can be tough at times. But we have to find a way to do it.
Jamie?
Yeah, I'm gonna put it this way. I'm probably outspoken to anybody in this town. Between me and Stevie. And I know this is where this is going to. I see this. And I'm gonna tell you, if I have a difference of opinion, Cindy, Paul, you, anybody else, even with me, I'm gonna voice that opinion. I try to do it respectfully. Sometimes I don't, sometimes I do. But I think we can be fine. I think it'd be a great thing to do. But it probably ain't gonna change my mind. There's gonna be things that I don't agree with, whoever it happens to be. I don't turn to social media to air my laundry. I do it to you or whoever's up here listening. We do have some people that will turn to social media to air their laundry, to stir up stuff. That bothers me. Maybe this was him, that part of it. But as far as me, I'm always going to have it. It's going to be hard to change my mind when I have things that I disagree with somebody about. Especially when a lot of times they don't come.
everybody isn't totally going to get along, but when you're in front of the people that you represent, it doesn't make you look good by putting down other people. So with that, that's all I had to say on it. If there's any other comments, that's fine, but I don't want to drag this around. I just wanted to come out with what I wanted to say.
They said lunch will be served at 11:30 and they're putting it out, so.
So make a motion to adjourn?
Just before we adjourn, let's go back up here to the master building plan
Yes, sir.
and talk about it just a minute. A while ago, we were talking about Kenny's office not being there for a couple hours. As I talked to Kenny a while ago, Kenny, as you have your office over there, are you busting at the seams? Are your officers not there but 45 minutes a day? Could you kind of give us an insight on that, on what we need to do over there at that building?
Well, I think that it's important just to mention, and I've heard it before, that the crowding is only an issue for 15 minutes, 2 times a day. Just to kind of go back in history just a little bit, when that building was built in 96, we had 12 police officers. That's what it was built for. And it was actually designed as a 2-story building, but cut down to a 1-story building for savings. Even then, it's cut back. But at the moment, we have 19 police officers, but 27 people work in that building each and every day. And while they might come in shifts and things like that, we have essentially, since that's why we spread into the annex in 2016 to reduce some of that overcrowding, with a promise that we were going to have a plan in place to address it. Of course, 5 years later, we move, back into the police department. Totally fine with us to cram in there, kind of hoping that we're going to get that relief that we need. But the usable space in the police department right now of office space is 1,426 square feet. That's it. And 9 people need to use that office space 40 hours a week. Comes out to about 153 square feet per employee. So it's not enough. I'm sure that you would agree with that. So we've had to farm 2 of our employees over to town hall. 3 actually. The victims advocates and the records clerk are across the street working on their stuff over in some town hall buildings. But now we're disjointed. So we have a breakdown in the ability to workflow information and handle business. So we are really crammed into there. And I know the jail space is there, but if you haven't been by, that is all being used as storage space right now. We've even got some things that are still stored in the annex because we can't get everything into the police department right now. Our evidence room is operating at above 100% capacity of what it can handle. It is really bad. We got to do something with evidence. It's something that can really get the government into big trouble. There's problems with evidence and evidence handling. We can't purge it fast enough. It's coming in faster than we can purge it. So we are challenged over there in space. So I appreciate the discussion today that you guys are it sounds like you guys want to move forward with trying to address some of that. So thank you very much. And thank you for bringing it up. And, yes, at shift change at 5:45 a.m. to 5:45 p.m., there's 3 or 4 additional people in there. But it's just, we have essentially the entire patrol division crammed into one office right now. Fortunately, we were able to get some furniture to kind of make that a little more palatable for the officers that are working in there. They're in and out sometimes of the day. They're working on reports, bigger things that they can't handle in the field. It is a challenge, so it is difficult. It's a challenge on morale as well when everybody's crammed in there.
On this master plan, do you think for building is the high priority of trying to get something done on this deal? On this master plan?
It's the highest priority.
Do you not think that would be a high priority?
I hope so, since, your police department is one of your larger staffed functions. We operate 24 hours a day, every day. This is a constant machine that's going. The building is definitely taking some wear and tear. We've got sediment coming through our pipes. There's some things that are going to need to be addressed over there. Police department is usually a 40-year project. We're coming up on that time. So I hope that you'll prioritize it, because I do. We definitely have some space issues over there. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yes, sir.
The next question I have on that, Kenny, and you don't need to stand up, but we moved you out of the Civic Center.
Yes, sir.
Where you had an annex over there.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, we're still in the Civic Center, the town council and meetings and stuff like that. We had our employee lunch there last week. So, I mean, is there a level of mold or a level of contamination to it that's?
I'm
You
not
still
really.
do shift change over there?
No, we don't allow any personnel over there. We've just got some stuff stored over there.
Is there a difference between the Civic Center where the annex is and the Civic Center where we are? Okay, as far as.
They have people there long-term.
But you could do your shift change
Right, that's what I was saying.
in either the annex or the civic center.
I don't want staff. I'd rather stay crammed where we're at and have staff go over there. I walked over there the other day and just walking over there. I would just kind of describe it as a stench in the building.
Well, but you could go into the civic center.
Yeah, we could go into the
So
civic
you
center.
at least have a little bit of space when you're doing this shift change, because that's when you've got the most people.
Is that building not leaking and not the Claro too, on the annex side?
I know the bays are leaking, and Eric can probably speak better to that than I can, but the annex piece is on a separate HVAC that had a lot of issues in the ventilation of HVAC, I think is one of the issues I can see. So, take them on. But if we had to, we could. It's just, it's moving operations and there's meetings over there and then we're in and out. And there's, meetings all throughout the week and, it's just, we don't have a training space. We don't have anywhere to do our defensive tactics training without entering out the room that you're using for the Civic Center. And then we got officers in there, for longer periods of time. Or if you guys slide in for an hour or two for a council meeting or something, maybe it's okay to be in there on a regular basis, I guess.
Well, we're working on it.
I can tell. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Does any of the other staff have anything that just gets done?
Does anybody else have
Does
anything?
anybody else have anything that consists of these things that we've been talking about?
But let's,
I want to ask Kenny, did you replace that roof yet, or are you going to just wait till all the shingles fall off?
Well, we just hope not. It's falling apart. I know Eric and I talked about that, and you've seen it yourself. I mean, the roof is literally, every time we have any kind of wind, the shingles falling off. But sooner or later, we're going to have a leak. That's going to be a problem. The roofing company stopped by the other day and just knocked on the door to see if we wanted to get a roof put on proactively. That's a true story. But I think it really depends on how you want to move forward. It depends on whether you want to direct the administrator to have Eric put a roof or something on, or.
Well, you heard today that we are working on it. I mean, we are going to do whatever in our plan, and we're going to try to figure out what we can do to get it. Just bear with us, and it's coming.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it.
18 months away.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
you hear there's a sale on blue tarps.
It's always looking nice.
Randy,
Thank you, man.
Does anybody else have anything that will say for it?
I would say just very quickly, as we go through this, obviously, Chief Hoffman has a lot of leads. We cannot lose sight of the Emergency Operations Center. As we start to have these discussions, whatever the master plan, how that all shakes out, what that looks like, I know as we work on the new DOT and all of that, right now functioning emergency, the training center, the fire station, it's just not an adequate space. Or do we have adequate needs to truly be effective in what we need to do? We work with Horry County and their brand new facility with their EOC. We are truly a command post here for Surfside Beach, but the space is just not functional. So I think as we have discussions and we go through the master plan, and we do all that, we just need to keep that in sight as we move forward with that. So that's
well,
really
I'd like to see that plan that we proposed to the architects, at least an alternative. One is the multi-purpose council chambers, but the other is that, public safety corridor.
Yeah.
And kind of go from the police station through the fire station.
That's the discussion about that.
I mean, moon, there's likely some stars we can get, you know? So if you look at it from a public safety corridor, which serves all the purposes of fire and police and, you know, emergency medical and the rest of it, first responders, then we can start to say, okay, well, we can't afford that right now, but let's do this piece of it. But, you know, keep that on the burner somehow. We define what that whole corridor looks like. And that was a discussion we had in 2021, along with, you know, relocating town hall, was, you know, leaving the public safety corridor on the east side of 17, because that's what really serves residents. But, you know, then looking at what's the optimum use of the balance of the property while locating government across the street. So, I mean, that it was considered back then, we just haven't followed through on it.
And when we talk about multi-use, we talk about putting the police and fire and combining it, you know, that would be the perfect opportunity to incorporate the courtroom into it, so you go directly from the police into the court. It would also be better, you know, for the council chambers to be over there, so people can come over there. Plus, just because, I mean, if you take the court and you take the council and you put their time together, that's nothing. I mean, you guys could still use that council chamber as a training session, as a training place, as, you know, for meetings and stuff like that. So, I mean, it would benefit everybody. So I'm all for us getting it together and coming up with a plan. I just don't know what the cost is, and that's something that we need to figure out. Anybody else have anything?
Now, there's some of the other employees have something to say.
John,
No,
you're happy with everything?
well, I want to see the options as well.
Okay.
I'm the type of person, I can make either one work, but I'm just trying to nail down the needs analysis and see what makes more sense. You know, it's truly, adding a building back of the new town hall going to be productive in the long run, or is it going to be counterproductive? That's kind of where my mind is right now. Again, we have to do a little more digging to get to the conclusion. It's going to be money well spent or not. I don't know. But I think they need to do more.
How about you, Sabrina?
Now,
Eric?
Everything good in plan.
Yeah, so much stuff has been talked about, I don't even know where to start. One of the things I want to mention about the police department, not only do they meet there, you know, on a regular basis, but we're coming up to a bike week, and every employee works doing that bike week. They don't have a choice, they're crammed into small office space, or one small space. And that happens 3 times a year. Then through the summer, they have numerous times where they all have to gather together and meet to do their training. And they do that weeks at a time. So this isn't something that it's every once in a while it's an inconvenience. It's something that happens on a regular basis that needs to be figured out. When we originally decided to move them out of the annex, it wasn't just because of mold. There are severe structural issues with that building that was deemed unsafe. And if anything would have happened, a spark or something from the faulty wiring, that building would go up pretty quick. When they did that building, they didn't pull any permits. They just built it to put a place in there for the PD, so the PD can have a place to work for a couple of years. A couple of years has turned into having to say 5 or 6. Now we take them out of that space and we throw them into the police department. They cram their jail cells with as much stuff as they could out of the annex. Now they're overcrowded. So now guess what? Now if there's a problem, we've got a problem because now the police department, we have too many people in there for what the building is, the space is meant for. These are all things we need to think of for the PD. Man, there's been so much talk about it. And I don't know how to go back and talk about it.
that's okay, we
But
got
since that's what we were talking about right
town needs now, what the town needs to inspire to move towards. People always think we only have so much land, we're not gonna get any larger, we don't need anything bigger. But even since I've been here, as you watch the construction, it doesn't stop. They tear down one building and they put in a duplex,
Quadruplex.
yeah, and everything continues to grow. So even though our space isn't getting larger, the amount of people are getting larger. Now, having said that, now think of Homestown Road. Homestown Road is at Surfside, but they redid Homestown Road. This means, I would think that people, it's probably going to end up bringing more people, and because I can see things being built, I think that's also going to have town grow as things grow around us. People are going to be coming to our beaches and growing. Meaning, we need to kind of think ahead and not just stay where we are. Going back just briefly, and I'll probably jump forward as I think about things, but talking about the demo for the buildings, there's large concerns for our buildings because they're not occupied. And there's concerns with that because when they're not occupied, there's issues with insurance. So that is an immediate need to do something with those buildings. And when I say that, I mean we need to think ahead of tearing down those buildings. It doesn't mean that we need to build anything in those buildings, but we need to get them knocked down because of insurance reasons. So that would also be another concern. When this quote, I started back in October or November getting some quotes for just demolition. And I just kind of put something together just for courthouse, town hall. I did put some quotes together for the annex and civic center, but just for the courthouse and town hall, I put some stuff together with the understanding that we were going to move forward. My thoughts aren't exactly spot on because I was trying to get an estimate. I was quoting for what people were saying in December, and then I had to guesstimate how much it was going to be to remove the asbestos out of the buildings because we have asbestos in town hall. The courthouse does not have any asbestos, so that I had to take a square foot measurement or a price, and I had to put it towards how much asbestos we have. So I just kind of rounded a number to $10 because it starts anywhere from $7 to $17 a square foot. I just calculated, well, hopefully we can find somebody for around $10 a square foot, and that's how I ended up coming with the price of the demo and the asbestos. Also, the asbestos, whenever you get it removed, you can't have the same company that checked for asbestos. You can't have the same company come in and remove it. It's not allowed because they may say that there's more asbestos in there than what it is. So not only do you have the asbestos company, but then you have to have a third-party monitoring system. So they monitor the air and also to make sure that all of the asbestos is gone. So I try to come up with a close estimate, so I think it's going to be pretty close. But that's how we went ahead with the asbestos.
I don't want to be rude.
I know,
They put the food and the flames under it, and I don't want it to burn on you guys.
Yeah, no, that's a good place.
You shoot me an email and I'll forward it.
No, that's all right.
All right, well, with that, I need a motion to adjourn.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, make a motion to adjourn the workshop.
All those in favor? Let's eat lunch.
You mind if I bless the food? Bless the food?